Hello, LREA members, and happy Friday to you. Today, we're going to talk about absences and tardies because it has been a big deal in the Little Rock School District lately. So, I thought that today I would cover your requirements and responsibilities as far as absences and tardies go, as well as talk a little bit about what has happened and what we're doing about it. So first of all, uh, we'll talk about absences. You receive sick days from the district at a rate of one per month worked, and so most of our teachers, 9 1/4 teachers, receive 10 sick days. Some of our other employees have 12 months or 12 sick days per year, or 11. Just depends on how many months your contract is. Um, and these are guaranteed by state law, and they are allowed to accumulate. Depending on when you came into the district, some people are allowed to accumulate up to 90 days, and some people are allowed to accumulate up to 178 days, or may have 178 days. Now, once you spend them down, you can't accumulate up to that amount again. Then the 90-day limitation goes into effect, but that's still a lot of time that you can accumulate. So when you get ready to use sick leave, um, there are a couple of things you need to be aware of. First of all, you have to make sure that you notify your building administrator and the subsystem at least 2 hours prior to the beginning of the workday. So you can send an email to your administrator, you can text your administrator if you have their cell phone number, you can call their office and leave a message, or call the secretary and leave a message, but you have to notify your administrator. Um, and then, of course, you have to put in the subsystem for a sub. Now, the classified employees, some of y'all have a different means of notifying your supervisors, and y'all don't use a subsystem, y'all use an in-house system, so you do what you've been instructed to do on that. But 2 hours prior to the beginning of the workday is the key thing there. Um, so so then let's say that you're out and you're out for 3 days. After 3 days, you can apply for FMLA, which will protect you from disciplinary measures being taken against you. So if you know that you're going to be out for a week at a time or 2 weeks, apply for FMLA because it will protect you from discipline. You can also use something called intermittent FMLA, and I talked about that in the know last week, because a lot of our employees don't know about FMLA, that is intermittent. And that means that if you have to be out for regular appointments, or physical therapy, dialysis, chemo treatments, things like that, or if you know that you have to have a procedure every week, allergy shots, or migraine therapy, those types of things, you can use intermittent FMLA to protect you from progressive discipline and to protect your job. And you apply for that the same way that you apply for regular FMLA. It's just a different form that you use. And all of those forms are located online at the HR site, or you can call HR and they will prepare a packet for you. So if you know you're going to be absent for 5 days or more, a predictable absent, like you're going to have a baby, or you're going to have knee surgery or whatever, then you have to notify HR 30 days in advance. And that protects you and it helps them, because what happens when you do that is they give you a packet that has the applications for FMLA, for short-term disability, all of those things that you need to have your doctor fill out for the district and for those items. And it's all in one packet, and you get that done and turn it in, and everything's taken care of in advance. if you're out 5 days or more, you have to have a doctor's excuse. Even if you apply for FMLA, you still, um, your doctor will still have to fill out a form for you. And then don't forget that you can take leave for up to half a day if your administrator approves without without putting in any leave. So if you have to go to a doctor's appointment at 8 o'clock and you know that you'll be done by 9:30, your administrator can approve for you to go to that doctor's appointment without calling in for a sub and going through all of that. They just have to provide coverage for your position. And that's up to half a day that you can take without having to report it as leave. And that's in the P&A. And then there's also the trigger for disciplinary measures. And so if you have a pattern of absences, this is why intermittent FMLA is important. Let's say you're out every Wednesday because you have to go get allergy shots every Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock. Or you have to leave early every Thursday because you have to go do dialysis. Those are patterns, and they can trigger progressive discipline, but they're also covered by intermittent FMLA if you apply for it. So patterns of absences or 3 occurrences in a 30-day period. Now, a lot of people are questioning what an occurrence is. Can an occurrence be 1 day? Yes. Can an occurrence be 3 days? Yes. Can an occurrence be 5 days? Yes. So if you took off 3 days the first week of April, and then you took off 2 days the second week of April, and you took off 4 days the third week of April, that's 3 occurrences, even though you took however many days I just said. But it only counts as 3 occurrences. Now, 3 occurrences can trigger progressive discipline. So if you know that you're going to be out all that time, it's best to apply for FMLA. The language is in the P&A, and there is some language in the employee handbook. The P&A supersedes the employee handbook because it's the negotiated item. But we do utilize some of that language because it's also in the personnel policy manual that we're still trying to get approved. And so we're trying to be proactive and use some of that language that we negotiated. So those are the main things. So what about tardies? Tardies, you're considered tardy if you're 10 minutes or more late past the start of your work day. So if let's say you work in an elementary school that starts at 7:45, you're required to be there 5 minutes before, so 7:40. So you would be considered late if you walked in the door at 7:50. Okay? At secondary, you're required to be there 10 minutes before. Your school day starts at 8:45. You're required to be there 10 minutes before, so that's 8:35. So you would be considered late if you walked in at 8:45, even though that's when your school day starts. It's not when your work day starts. So 10 minutes or more late, you're considered tardy, and if you have 3 tardies in a 30-day period, it starts progressive discipline. So there's not as much leniency on tardies. So 3 occurrences in a 30-day period, it starts progressive discipline. Now, what is progressive discipline? Progressive discipline is a written warning, written reprimand, suspension, and then recommendation for termination. Now, HR, Ms. Eason, has also inserted her own notice of concern into the progressive discipline lineup, and that's fine if they want to give you a notice of concern, but it doesn't really mean anything because it's not a negotiated part of progressive discipline. So, and then also, what about personal leave? So personal leave is a little bit different for personal leave, you must notify your administrator or your supervisor 24 hours in advance. Now, does that mean you're calling them or emailing them and saying, can I or may I take personal leave on this date? Please, thank you. No, it means you're saying, Miss So-and-so, this is notice that I am taking personal leave on April 15th. I will return to work on April 16th. That's what that means. You have 2 days of personal leave. You don't ask permission to use it, but you do have to notify your administrator or your supervisor 24 hours in advance of taking it. And if for those of you who have been around a while, you remember you couldn't take personal leave the day before a student holiday. So there are no longer limits on when you can take personal leave. So you can take personal leave anytime you want, except during testing. So notify 24 hours in advance. You can take it anytime you want. What about for our classified employees and our non-exempt employees? First of all, teachers are exempt. Most people on salaries are exempt. But people that have to turn in hourly or that get paid overtime are non-exempt. And so what about for them? They come under the same sick leave, personal leave, tardy rule that we do as teachers, but they have to actually keep up. You, the classified employees who are non-exempt, have to actually keep accurate records of your time. So either you're using a time clock, none of them work, or you have a paper, a form that you have to fill out that has your time in, time out, breaks, all of that on it. And it's very important that you keep accurate records on those items, either whether you're clocking in, I think maintenance uses a time clock, so you're clocking in and out at maintenance, or if you're writing it down on paper. Because falsifying time, even if that's not what you're meaning to do, you may write down your time on your timesheet a week in advance, which is not good. Or a week after, and you may forget that you were on break at 1 o'clock. But if somebody can prove that you turned in time when saying that you were working when you really weren't working, that's grounds for termination. So be very careful about keeping accurate time records. You also should not do any work without accounting for that time. So either by clocking in or by writing down the time that you're working, the actual time that you're working. So if your supervisor says, can you come in, and I need you to come in from 5:30 to 7 because PTA needs to have a dance. Well, that's fine and good, but you need to write down that time that you worked. You should not, because there's 2 reasons for that. One is overtime, of course. And that overtime comes under a whole different umbrella because it has to be pre-approved and all that. But workers' comp is important too, because if you get injured and you're working outside of your regular hours and you didn't put it on your timesheet or you didn't clock in, workers' comp's not going to cover you. So always make sure that if you're working, you're writing it down or clocking in. Regardless of what anybody tells you. As a matter of fact, if anybody tells you not to do that, you need to contact LREA because that's a violation. So those are the rules for absences and tardies. So now let me talk just a minute about what has been going on. So the ADE did an attendance audit of all of the schools in Arkansas, actually, and when they did that, Little Rock was actually not as bad as some of the other districts when you account for the number of people we have. But when you look at our absences on paper, it looks awful because we have 3,600 employees and they all have 10 days of sick leave, and when you have 3,600 employees working with kids, people get sick, people have babies, people have families, that need their assistance. People have kids that need to go to the doctor and get sick. And so people to use their sick leave, which is a benefit provided by the state and the district. So I say all that to say that the ADE said, uh, get on this sick time. We need to do some discipline because some of these people are abusing the system. So let me say this to those of you who tend to abuse the system. Stop it. You're hurting the rest of us. I know that this has been a tough year, and I know that it's been sunny and beautiful and the horse races are calling. I get all that. Don't do it. Because when you get caught, it's very hard for us to defend you, number one. And number two, it makes all of us look bad. If we're going to ask to be treated as professionals, we have to act like professionals. And that means we don't abuse our sick leave. I'm not saying don't use it, because we all have legitimate reasons for using it. But I'm just saying, don't abuse it. And especially don't go on a cruise and take pictures and post it all over Facebook, because if you think they're not monitoring Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and things like that, I hate to tell you, but they are. And they will come after your job if they find you on Facebook on a cruise when you're on sick leave. So be very careful about those types of things as well. But so anyway, the ADE told them to do the discipline, and somebody over there came up with a rubric for how many days equal what type of discipline. And didn't matter if you had ever had a written warning or notice of concern. Some people automatically got written reprimands because of the number of days they had taken, which is not progressive discipline. And so Mr. Poore and I had a conversation about it, and he agrees that it may not have been handled in the best way, and we are meeting again to work to discuss how that was handled and how we can do a better job of administering discipline to people who are actually abusing the system, rather than punishing everybody with discipline that is not progressive, which is your due process rights. And so rest assured that we are on top of that, and I am working to get that addressed. So again, happy Friday. Have a great weekend. I don't know. I don't think the weather's going to be great tomorrow, but maybe you can do something inside, read a book. That's one of my favorite things to do. But have a great weekend. We're getting ready for testing season, so try to relax, de-stress, enjoy your family, all of those great things. Thanks, and bye.